Hello everyone, this is Shanti Shirsad from Patil Polytechnic, Bhayindar. In this session, we learn about TCP/IP protocol suite. Learning outcomes: learner will be able to understand the application layer protocols like FTP, HTTP, SMTP, Telnet, DNS, BootP, and DSCP. Introduction: the application layer of TCP/IP model provides the services that users' application use to communicate over the network. The first protocol at application layer is a FTP, that is file transfer protocol. It's the concept of moving files from one storage device space to your server or so other can look at it. The FTP protocol, that is file transfer protocol, allows you to connect two remote computers using FTP program on your machine. Browse a list of files available, retrieves the files and navigate the directory structure of the host system. It is the simplest and most secure way to exchange the files over the internet. The most common use for FTP is to download files from the internet. This is the architecture of FTP protocol, that is file transfer protocol, which work on port number 20 on client side and port 20 for control connection and port 21 for data connection. Figure shows the basic structure of FTP. Server has two major components and the client has two major components. The control connection is made between control processes at server and client side, while the data connection is made between data transfer processes. One more thing that is very important about the control and data connection is that control connection remains open during the entire FTP interactive session, while data connection is open when the user wants to transmit the file and then it's closed after the file transfer. In short, data connection is open and closed for each file transferred, but control connection remains as it is once it's established. How the FTP works means how actually file transferring is performed using FTP protocol. A FTP client is an application that can issue the FTP commands to an FTP server, means send the request to the FTP server. While an FTP server is a service or daemon running on the server that responds to FTP commands coming from client. FTP commands can be used to change the directories, changes the transfer modes between binary and ASCII files, and uploads the files and downloads the files. FTP uses TCP for reliable network communication by establishing the session before initiating the data transfer. The port number 21 on the FTP server listen for connection attempts from the FTP client and used to control the port for establishing the connection between the client and the FTP server. For allowing the client to send an FTP command to the server and returning the server's response to the command, we use port number 21. Once the control connection has been established, server opens the port number 20 to form a new connection with the client for transferring the actual data during the uploading and downloading. Means FTP port number 21 is used for control connection, that is actual connection between FTP client and FTP server. Once the connection has been established, server opens the port number 20 and on this port number 20, server allows actually transferring of data, that is uploading a file and downloading a file. Applications of FTP. First, uploading the web pages to the web servers for publishing on the internet. Browsing and downloading the files from public software sites. Organization uses the FTP to allow the employees to share files across the different location and branch offices. transferring large files among the two parties that are too large for email attachment, downloading and uploading the content like university's assignments via an FTP server, distributing the latest revisions of programs by software developers. Employee uses the FTP to securely share the file with co-workers and external business partners. IT teams uses the FTP to transfer the data back to the disaster recovery sites. HTTP, that is Standard Web Transfer Protocol, that is Hypertext Transfer Protocol, which is used mainly to access the data on World Wide Web. It consists of two fairly distinct items: the set of requests from browsers to servers and the set of responses going back the other way. It uses the well-known port of TCP, that is port number 80. What are the characteristics of HTTP? One is the application level. It operates on application level. It assumes the reliable connection-oriented transfer protocol such as TCP, but does not provide reliability or retransmission itself. Second function or characteristics of HTTP is request or response. Once the transport session has been established, the browser must send an HTTP request to which the other side responds. It is a stateless protocol. Each HTTP request is self-contained. The server does not keep the history of previous requests or sessions. Bidirectional transfer. HTTP allows the transfer from server to browser and also vice versa. The next protocol which is used or work at application layer is SMTP, that is Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. It is an internet standard for electronic mail transmission across the internet network, that is IP network. It is a connection oriented text-based protocol in which mail sender communicate with mail receiver by issuing a command string and supplying necessary data over reliable connection. It is a standard application layer protocol for delivery of email over TCP/IP network such as internet. Email system is implemented with the help of message transfer agent. There are normally two MTAs in each mailing system, one for sending emails and another for receiving emails. The formal protocol that defines the MTA client and server in the internet is called Simple Mail Transfer Protocol, SMTP. This is the working of Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. Check here. By referring the above diagram, we can say that SMTP is used two times, that is between sender and sender's mail server and between sender mail server and receiver's mail server. Another protocol POP3 is used between receiver mail server and receiver side. It establishes the connection between sender and sender and receiver using port number 25. Command and responses, that is MTA client and MTA server. There are two messages, that is commands and responses. SMTP uses the commands and response to transfer message between MTA client and MTA server. Mail transfer agent client and mail transfer agent server. Each command or reply is terminated by two characters, that is carriage return and line feed, end of line token. What are the advantages and disadvantages of SMTP? It is relatively simple text-based protocol in which one or more recipients of messages are specified along with the text message and possibly other encoded objects. It's easy to implement and higher speed. Disadvantages: SMTP cannot transmit executable files or other binary objects. SMTP servers may reject mail messages over a certain size. The next protocol is a telnet protocol, that is telecommunication network is a network layer protocol used on the internet or LAN connections. It is a protocol that allows you to connect to remote computers called host over a TCP/IP network such as Internet. Using Telnet client software on your computer, you can make the connection to the Telnet server, that is remote host. Once your Telnet client establishes the connection to the remote host, your client becomes as a virtual terminal, allowing you to communicate with remote host from your computer. The Telnet program runs on the computer and connects your PC to your server on the network. Telnet is a common way to remotely control the web servers. This is the Telnet model where one is a user terminal, then it works as a Telnet client and it communicates with Telnet server, okay, at application layer. For the connection, Telnet uses the TCP protocol. That's why it is a connection oriented. The Telnet service is offered in the host machines having port number 23. The user at the terminal interacts with local Telnet client. User at the terminal interact with local Telnet client. It acts as a terminal, accepting any keystrokes from the keyboard and interpreting them and displaying the output on the screen. Client on the computer makes the TCP connection to the host machine using port number 23, where the Telnet server answers. Telnet server interact with application in the host machine and assist in the terminal emulation, that is Telnet emulator. As the connection is set up, both the end users of the Telnet connections are assumed to be originated and terminated at the network virtual terminal. Example is TeamViewer. Next protocol of the application layer is DNS, that is Domain Name System or Domain Network Service, in which the computers can contact each other and do things such as exchange the electronic mail or display the web pages. Domain name is the unique name that is assigned to the website, that is google.com, gmail.com, etc. The IP uses the internet address information and the DNS to deliver the mail and other information from one computer to another computer. DNS is a distributed internet directory service. It is used mostly to transmit between domain names, that is www.domainname.com, and IP addresses. DNS provides the method for identifying the host with friendly name instead of IP address. A distributed mechanism for storing and maintaining the list of names and IP address of host. Third, a method for locating the host by resolving their names into their associated IP address so that network communication can be initiated with the host. Domain namespace. Domain namespace is a hierarchy which is similar to Unix file system. In this design, names are defined as an inverted tree structure with a root at the top, and domain names are the case sensitive. .com and .com are same because it is not case sensitive, it is case insensitive. Every node has a label of maximum 63 characters long. The root label is a null string. The name in the DNS database format a hierarchical tree structure called the domain namespace. The domain namespace tree is divided into two sections, that is generic domain and country domain. There are some generic domain, that is .com, .education, .government, .int, that is international organizations, that .military, that is for military group, .net, that is network supporting engineers, .org, that is non-profit organizations. Okay, and some of the domains are country domain, that is AU for Australia, CA Canada, in India, UK United Kingdom, US United States, TH that is Thailand, FR for France, ZW for Zimbabwe. Next topic is what is domain and domain name. Domain is a subtree of domain namespace. The name of the domain is the domain name of the node at the top of the subtree. Figure shows the .com and .edu are the domain names. Name is the name for the domain within the domain name space. Domain name can include only the characters, that is small a to z, capital A to z and 0 to 9, the dash and the period. Domain name can be classified as one of the following, that is parent domain name, which contains the other domains. Example of parent domain is Microsoft.com, and the child domain, which is also called subdomain and which contains within a parent domain. Example of child domain in Microsoft.com parent domain is northwind.microsoft.com or marketing.microsoft.com. Here Northwind and marketing both are the child domain in Microsoft.com parent domain. Domain name are maybe fully qualified domain name or partially qualified domain name. The fully qualified domain name. If label is terminated by null string, it is called fully qualified domain name. A fully qualified domain name contains the full name of the host. For example, mail.yahoo.com and dot. It is also called absolute domain name. It always ends with periods or dot. Partial qualified names, if the label is not terminated by null string or dot, it is called partially qualified name. Partially qualified name starts from a node but never reaches to the root node, that is mail.yahoo.com. It is also called relatively domain name and it never ends with periods, means a dot. Next protocol of application layer is BootP protocol, that is Bootstrap protocol is a networking protocol used to by a client for obtaining an IP address from the server. It was designed to replace the reverse, that is RIRP protocol, also known as RFC 902. It is obtain the configuration information. The protocol software broadcasts the BootP request message. When BootP server receives the request, it searches the database for the request and places information in single BootP reply message and returns the reply to the requesting computer. It broadcasts each request. BootP broadcasts each request and it uses IP to send a request and receives the response. It is a packet format of BootP, that is optional, header lane, type, transaction identifier, second elapsed, unused, client IP address, then your IP address, server's IP address, router's IP address, client and server's hardware address and host name, boot file system and vendor specific area. Fields in BootP packet format, optional. It specifies whether the message is request or reply. H type, it is the hardware type field for specifying the type of hardware which is used. Then header lane, it specifies the hardware address field, indicates the length. It specifies how many servers, that is HOPS. It specifies how many servers forwarded the request, that is hops. It specifies hop count, that is specifies how many servers forwarded the request. Transaction identifier, it provides the value that client can use to determine if an incoming response matches its request. Second elapsed, total elapsed time since the computer began to boot. This is time in seconds. Next field is unused. It is original specification or BootP and this is 2-byte field which is not used, that is unused or optional. Next is the client IP address, it is 4-byte field, that is IP address of the client device. Your IP address used by BootP server supply an IP address to client requesting. It is 4-byte field, the number of bytes needed to store an IP address. Router IP address. If BootP proxy server is being used, Address in this 4-byte field is the address of the router or other device performing the proxy function. Next address is a client hardware address. If the client already knows its hardware IP address, it will place the address into the 4-byte field. Server host name. This field can be up to 64 bytes in the length and contains the null terminated ASCII string of characters that represents the server's host name on the network. Boot file name. This field can be up to 128 characters in the length and used to supply with the file name it can download and use to boot. The next field is vendor specific area, and this is 64 bytes are set aside to store vendor specific optional information. The next protocol at application layer is DHCP. It is Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol, which is used to provide quick, automatic and central management for the distribution of IP address within a network. In large network, a single computer might act as a DHCP server. It is a protocol that automatically assigns the unique IP address to each device that connected into the network. It runs in client-server mode, where servers set up the pool of available IP addresses for a network. With DHCP, there is no need to manually set up the IP address to every new device. Therefore, no user configuration is necessary to connect to DHCP based network. When you connect to the network, your device is considered a client and the router is the server. This is DHCP messages which are sent or received in between DHCP client and DHCP server, that is DHCP request, DHCP discover, DHCP offer, DHCP request and DHCP acknowledgement. In order to successfully connect to the network via DHCP, the following step must be take place. When the client detects it has connected to the DHCP server, it sends an DHCP discover request, that is the first message, request message. Router either receives the request or redirect it to the appropriate DHCP server. If the server accepts the new device, it will send DHCP offer message back to the client, which contains the client's device MAC address and IP address which is offered for that particular client device. The client returns DHCP request message to the server to confirming that IP address. Finally, server responds with DHCP acknowledgement. Acknowledgement message that confirms the client has been given access for a certain amount of time or for least time. Messages used by the DHCP. One is a DHCP discover, then DHCP offer, DHCP request, DHCP decline, release, DHCP acknowledgement, that is positive acknowledgement and negative acknowledgement. Client broadcasts the located available server. It assumes at least one of the server will have resources to fulfill the request. May include the additional pointer to specific service required, example, particular subnet, minimum time limit, etc. DHCP offers, that is server to client in response to DHCP discover with offer of configuration parameters. DHCP request. Client broadcasts to the servers requesting offered parameters from one server and implicitly declining the offers from all other. Also important in case of lease renewal if the allotted time is about to expire. DHCP decline. Client to server indicating the configuration parameter invalid. DHCP release. Client to server relinquishing the network address and cancelling the current lease. DHCP acknowledgement. Server to client with configuration parameters including committed network address. DHCP acknowledgement, that is negative acknowledgement. Request for configuration, refusing request for configuration parameter, that is request network address already allocated. Methods of allocating IP address using DHCP, that is static allocation and dynamic allocation. In static allocation, DHCP server allocate IP address based on table with MAC address or IP address pair, which are manually filled. Only requesting client with MAC address listed in the table will be allocated an IP address. But in dynamic allocation, network administrator assign the range of IP addresses to DHCP, and each client computer on the LAN is configured to request an IP address from DHCP server during the network initialization. And the third one is the automatic allocation. DHCP server permanently assign the free IP addresses to requesting client from the range defined by the administrator. This is like dynamic allocation, but DHCP server keeps the table of past IP address assignment so that it can preferentially assign to the client the same IP address that the client previously had. Advantages of DHCP. One is the centralized management, then automatic IP assigning, easy of adding new clients in the network. The implementation does not require any additional costs. Duplicate or invalid address assignment is not possible. All IP configuration information gets automatically configured for every client machine by the DHCP server. Disadvantages of DHCP. The DHCP server can be a single point of failure in networks having only one configured DHCP server. The DHCP server has no secure mechanism for authentication of client. The name does not change when new IP address is assigned. Client is not able to access the network in absence of DHCP server. Thank you guys. All these protocols are related to the application layer of TCP/IP model. This is the last point in our chapter number 4. Thank you.